goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine. Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, joined by my fellow co-hosts and filmmakers, John and Elaine Woolscroft.
I'm so glad you could join us. Snuggle up close to me and I'll whisper podcast things in your ear.
As usual, you bring that creepy game immediately.
That's, again...
And you bring that creepy game strong. That's why we love
Yeah.
Let's talk about horror.
Horrors?
Horror. He was actually on topic. He
And then
sniffed
some
the
horrors.
microphone after he spoke, but at least he's on topic.
Okay.
I'm trying to be spooky.
Spooky. So
It is the season.
It
You are
is.
so
It's
spooky.
October, my favorite month, and
Mine too.
we're on episode number 25.
I like February, said no one ever.
Especially if you live in Pittsburgh, no one likes February.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania, in
No,
general,
no.
we're not a fan.
So yeah, we're going to be talking about some horror tonight. We each came up with our top 3 favorite horror movies. We figured do this at the beginning of the month. That way, it gives you plenty of time to go ahead and find them and watch them and
tell us how great we are.
tell us how great we are. Yeah, and be like, that movie was terrible. Why the hell would you fucking make me watch that?
Well, we also got a bunch of other spooky episodes lined up.
We do. What do we got next week? We got
We have a vampire episode.
vampires.
I'm pretty excited.
Vampires,
so,
yeah. So
you guys can buckle in for that. But
Yeah.
but tonight it's all about the horror movies and our favorites.
but yeah, before we even get to that, Elaine, you got a little bit of a news bit.
Yeah, I got like an interesting news story, guys, and I know a lot of my stuff comes from, say, the TV realm, but I find that there's a lot of interesting information to be gleaned there. And I don't know if you guys saw much about this story this week, but I thought this was so interesting. So we know Mindy Kaling I know her mostly from The Office, but she does have her own show.
Yeah.
That
And
apparently people still tune into, I guess.
well, she moved over to Hulu, and it had enough of a fan base for them to kind of continue with it. Excuse me. But I guess, her older brother has been working on this project. He's written a book, and there's just so much going on here, guys. We're just we're gonna have so much fun.
Is his project called the Vijay Project?
No, it's not for the Mindy project.
Damn it.
It would be sad. It would be awesome.
Damn it!
So
The Vijay monologues.
I guess what we should do is say first, like, okay, so.
It's basically family drama, is what you're talking about.
Well, it is, but it's so delicate, and like I don't know why I'm waffling. Okay, just dive in, Will.
Dive in.
Vijay wrote a book on how he used affirmative action against
Vijay
universities.
is Mindy's brother.
Yeah, and
Right.
they're Indian, and he used affirmative action against the system. He pretended he was black to get into medical school, and he details it in his book. That's what his book is about.
Wow.
Like that movie Soul Man? What was that 80s movie where
Is that what it was called? Soul Man?
It was called Soul Man.
I think that's what it
when he
was.
was in blackface?
Because I
Yeah.
immediately thought...
Didn't they make a remake to
I
that
immediately
movie?
thought of it. I fucking hope not, because that
Oh,
shit's not
I thought
okay.
they did.
Oh, I hope not.
The original Soul Man is 14% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, you guys.
Well, it's not since Al Jolson has blackface really been popular.
Well, I don't really trust Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes gave Ghostbusters like a 60 or 70.
I kind of... Wait, the new one?
Yeah.
I kind of buy that.
I don't buy that.
Fine.
That's that's an old episode. Go take a look at that one.
ladies in it, and we loved it.
That's a bunch of critics being afraid to bash a movie because Richard Roper
We
said
don't
the
want to
movie's
dive
fun.
into this again, okay? We got 2 fucking episodes for that.
We can
Shouldn't
fight
have mentioned it.
We can fight all day long. Okay, no, just
Ghostbusters and fighting words.
No, anyway, so there is a movie from '86 called Soul Man that's basically this, only it's a white dude doing it, which it's utterly fucking appalling. Definitely like
I think just using
context movie.
race like that in any regard is just offensive.
Well, I mean, be that as it may, I mean, I'm not here to dive into the subject of the book itself, though I have to say it is a very volatile situation.
Yeah.
But basically, the whole deal of it is that behind the scenes, allegedly, Mindy has been trying to kind of like shut her brother down and kind of derail his success or any potential success that he might enjoy, as a part of this
What's her deal?
project. Well, I mean, I'm trying to be objective because,
Is she
I'm
just
not,
that much like her character on The Office?
I'm not. Well, okay. Here's the thing. I'm not a huge Mindy fan. Like, I love The Office, and I know she contributed hugely to that. And I do have both of her books. I thought the second one was kind of terrible. I thought the first one was great, so I don't get it. But, if whatever you believe, what she's been doing apparently is that she said that the whole book will bring shame on their family. And her brother kind of shot back with, "You play a slut on national TV, and you think I'm the shame of the family." And I think that's I think that's very shitty because that is definitely like shaming in a way where like
that is severe shaming.
These are characters on TV.
Yeah,
it'd be like Jodie Foster's brother being like, "Well, you got raped. That was a movie, bro."
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what this shows is it does show, a lot of ignorance still in society of like, well, you play a slut. Like, no, she just plays a woman who enjoys sex. Funny how dudes seem to think that's the same
fictional slut shaming? Like, is that pretty much what it is?
Yeah, basically. So, but yeah, I
well,
guess,
you pretend to be a slut, so that's horrible. That's just fucking bullshit.
But her brother basically identified himself as black on the applications because he thought it would be easier to get accepted. And lo and behold, I think it was. I mean, he got accepted. I don't know if it was easier.
That's gaming the system, though. Like, that literally
what
is
he did, I don't support.
No, neither do
So
I.
I don't like lying of any kind.
Now, so she technically started this thing, correct?
I think, that's what he claims, that she's been hurting his, like, progress, I guess, with the book. And he said that she's done it before. And, like, they apparently had a falling out in, like, 2014, and they don't talk anymore.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, he's claiming that she goes ahead and she's been sabotaging the book. And he said she's done it to other people.
Wow.
Now, she had a pretty high-profile romance not too long ago with, I think he was a writer. I can't remember the guy's name. It was, like, Ben something, I think. But what had happened was...
Yeah, it was Ben Affleck.
Oh, that's,
give it to me, Batman.
Right. Okay, so she had been in a relationship with Benjamin Nugent, and I guess their relationship had fallen apart when she kind of like politicked behind the scenes to make sure that his sister Annie wouldn't be represented by the William Morris Endeavor Agency. And,
okay. And
I mean, it even... And I guess what she was doing is like saying to, her honey's face that she was helping, and in the meantime she was hurting. That's what the article on, the Daily Mail
hearsay,
kind of outlined.
Though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, the facts are that they definitely did break up, and that the sister Annie, she did end up getting a Pulitzer Prize in 2014 anyway. So who knows? But but I guess like she and her brother don't talk anymore, apparently since 2014. But he basically said like. It's a lot of he said, she said at this point because Mindy's camp isn't releasing any information. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have asked for a comment and they have no comment. Now, she was on Good Morning America or the Today Show or some terribly vapid
doesn't matter
thing.
They're all the same shit.
Which one has Strahan now? I'm not even sure.
And all she did was just talk about her show. She just talked about, the Mindy Project and didn't mention anything about it. But apparently, I mean, the picture that her brother is painting of her is that she's basically a manipulative conniver that's worked against other people in the business to either further her own ends or just to sabotage them.
I think that's not like, I think a lot of people in Hollywood do that sort of shit though. They step over a lot of people and kind of snake in the grass bullshit.
Right, and for me, like I said, it's a lot of alleged this.
Right.
He said, she said. I mean, number one, I think Vijay's book is gross.
Yes.
But at the same time, interesting that it was able to, that the system could be exploited in that way, and I think that's.
I think if anything, that book you could say it's gross, but it also paints a worse picture of the educational system.
It's gross that he did it, but it sucks that system's in place. So
right.
I mean, so that's almost like a draw.
I mean, I know that when I was in high school, I applied to a bunch of universities, and one of the ones I applied to, basically sent back because I had marked down Jewish. Now I will say I am the worst Jew on the planet. Okay, this can be vetted.
You're our favorite Jew, though.
Right, I know that. Well, I mean,
hashtag
I can just say. Our mutual friend Grant is a far superior Jew than I am.
Oh, Grant is a good Jew.
He is a
He's
really good Jew.
And
He
damn
knows,
sexy.
And we miss you,
We
Grant.
do.
Please
We
listen
do.
to
I miss
this.
your abs. Cut out of sheetrock you were.
I was gonna say marble.
I was gonna say marble too, dude.
Oh, you
But
smelled real good too.
My point is that I just mark down that, and that the minute I get that, I get all these scholarship things for, oh, you're Jewish, blah 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 blah. And it's like I'm honestly, I kind of put that down as like a cultural thing. It's not really, but I easily could use that
Sure.
to get in.
Right.
You know, and I know that some people would. So really, like this sort of thing, I mean, you could say it's more based on race rather than religion, but, you know, what's to stop someone from saying, hey, I'm going to pretend to be Catholic, you know, or
If you apply
pretend
to
to
a
be
Catholic
Christian
school or
to get
any of that
in.
stuff, yeah.
I mean, that's exploiting a system in place. Now,
Right.
could it be maybe that we don't take into account things like, you know, the color of someone's skin or what religion they belong to, and just say, hey, are your grades good? You know, are you a good
Are you
fit?
a uniquely qualified
Are you a
candidate?
uniquely
Isn't that
yes.
what you always are supposed to say?
That's what that's what they always say. You know,
Guys,
how
if
good
they
was your
don't-
essay?
If they don't do that, if you don't check those boxes off, then they can't do the multicultural pamphlet for the university with the black guy and the Asian girl and the kid in the wheelchair. You know, they got to make sure they have those people ready for photo day. You know,
Are you implying that they don't do this for the right reasons, John?
what? No.
So yeah, but anyway, that not only is
It
think
just
the
shows
topic
me
of
a broken education system.
yeah, and the
honestly.
topic of the book, I mean, is controversial,
Yeah.
you know, to say the least. But I just thought it was interesting because a lot of stars in Hollywood have publicly feuded with their siblings. But I just thought this was interesting because you had said, like, before we started recording that you weren't really surprised if, you know, Mindy Kaling's a bitch. But I kind of was. Like, her first book is very touching and very funny. And when I read it, I was like, she's just like me. You know, 'cause I don't know.
Here's the thing.
I felt a kinship, you know?
I'm not as familiar with Mindy Kaling as other actors,
And I wouldn't say I'm an
so,
expert by
like,
any means.
honestly, the only memorable thing I can think of her in was 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Oh, okay.
That was it.
Yeah,
I never
so you
watched
didn't watch The Office,
No,
yeah.
I never was a fan of The Office.
The Office is
You know, but I mean, I knew she was on it,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, and I don't even watch the Mindy Project because it's just not my thing. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I really don't have much to say about her other than that's kind of a typical Hollywood thing, is to kind of, you know, if the, you know, opportunity's there, you step over people. I don't think it's the right thing to do,
But it's a prevalent thing.
but it's
Yeah,
a prevalent
but I don't
thing.
know. That just surprised me. I hope it's not true. I
Yeah.
hope he's just mad that she's not promoting his book.
Hey guys,
That could be it too.
all I have to say is blood is thicker than water. But speaking of blood, we're talking about our horror movies this week.
God
Our favorites.
damn it!
Brian's like not even excited or
does it
happy.
again.
He's just like furious. That's my
I'm
favorite
not
part.
furious. I always wait. Every week we do this. I wait to see, okay, what transition is John going to pull out of his ass this week? No matter what.
I dare say that he crafted that. I don't think it came from anywhere near the ass region.
I never think of these ahead of time.
I'm just saying.
I mean, but I think you put thought into it instead of just like pulling something rusty out of your bumhole.
I'm just saying.
I'm on your
we've had.
side.
No, I'm just saying.
That
We've
had to
had
be
news. We've
rusty
had
to begin
news.
with.
We've had news articles about, you know, how terrible Michael Bay is, and rape, and other things like that. And you're able to go ahead and just, oh, by the way, these are horrible things we just talked about, or these are controversial things, and here's what our topic is. So I'm very impressed.
I'm taking a long, hard look at this podcast, guys, and I have some questions of the topics that we get on.
Oh, speaking of which, Burke, Ramsey, come on. Come on.
Oh,
You're
God.
a coward.
No,
You're a goddamn
no.
coward.
You weren't going to
No.
do it. Oh,
Get on here.
Please don't
Open
do that.
forum, buddy.
No, we're moving on. We're moving on.
Okay.
You're a coward.
We have Halloween films. You are so
Halloween
pleased with
films.
yourself right now. I don't think your smile's ever been bigger. You're so
Yeah.
happy right now.
Okay.
Anyway,
So,
top horror films now.
So yeah, let's break this
what was
down.
what was kind of the criteria you guys used to pick yours?
Ooh.
Well,
that's a
that's
question.
that's a fascinating question, Brian. It's almost like we talked ahead of time, which we don't.
No, seriously, I didn't ask you guys.
well,
Because
about
what's
that.
fascinating about
favorite,
this
right? Our
is
favorites.
yes.
Okay.
Now, what's fascinating is what is a horror movie? Not to sound like a community college professor here, but I should have my tweed jacket on. But there are certain films that, you know, are really kind of on the spectrum. So it's, you know, it's open for debate. For example, here's one: is Schindler's List a horror movie?
Ooh.
It depends.
Is Jaws?
No.
Well,
it's on lists.
I know. I don't give a shit.
Well, Jaws, really it's considered, by many lists to be the number one horror movie on the list. We see it as, because we're so desensitized now, as like just a thriller movie, but that was terrifying to people back in the day.
I think that there
It was a life ruiner back in the day.
For me, I mean, I kind of consider myself the big horror aficionado here.
That's fair.
I've always said that it's a hard genre to define because it's got very many subdivisions within it.
Like, is Alien, is that a sci-fi movie or
no?
a horror
I
movie?
consider that a horror because I guess for me, I consider horror movies, and I guess Jaws kind of does fall into play with that. So I mean, for me personally, I don't think it's a horror movie. But I guess if you want to consider, an overarching definition, I guess horror movies are films that find a way to tap into either our personal fears, our societal fears, or just general fear in general. Like, I think that's the big thing, is do they tap into fear? Can they find out what horrible things are going on in our world and exploit it? That's what every horror movie, and actually not even just movies, but just every piece of horror fiction has always been about, is exploiting those fears that exist every day. And how do you do that? Now, granted, there are very many different levels of it. That some, I would say, fall more in the line of a thriller than they do a guy in the die in the wool horror movie. But that, for me at least, is the general consensus. It's a film that is able to tap in and exploit our fears, be it personal or societal.
The Accused, is that a horror movie?
Never seen The Accused.
It's about a brutal rape and then nobody believing her.
Speaking of Jodie Foster, that's the thing.
That's the movie you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say to some degree. Now, as I said, it becomes with different levels. There are some that are based more in realistic horror. Okay, like I would say that there are aspects of Schindler's List, for obvious reasons, that would fall in the line of horror. There are horrific scenes. But would I consider that movie to be a die-in-the-wool horror? No. I would consider it more of a drama.
Yeah.
With horror,
horrific
dealing with horrific subject matter. I'm assuming with that movie, as I said, I haven't seen it, so I can't really speak to it, but it would probably be more of a thriller that deals with horrific subject matter. Okay? But Alien, for instance, that is a full-on horror movie,
monster movie,
because not just monster movie. It's dealing with the aspects of the unknown. It's dealing with isolation, feels of sexuality. It deals with fear of the other. Okay, which is a constant thing you see in horror movies. When we talk about vampires, and next week, that one's going to deal with a lot of those same issues.
Absolutely.
So I think there are different subsections and different categories that horror encompasses, but the big one, as I said, is just fears.
Well, what happens when horror gets into the world of comedy? For example, a frequent listener to our show, Damien, he wrote in. We asked, what are some of your favorite horror movies, and he had mentioned that he prefers more of the, the comedy horror mashups like Ghostbusters, Shaun of the Dead, Dale and Tucker versus Evil, Cabin in the Woods. I mean, are those movies comedy? Are they horror? Or are they both?
I think they're both.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Elaine, what do you think?
Can they still be counted among the best of a horror movie if they straddle the genre? Well, for me personally, I decided no. My criteria was it had to be a movie that I could either respect that it scared its audience in its time, or that it scared me personally. That was my
So
criteria.
if you're laughing, you don't see it as horrific.
My problem is that horror movies, by and large, don't scare me.
Right.
Seriously, they don't.
Just desensitized.
I'm so desensitized to it that I look at it now in terms of my criteria were it was basically one, it was movies that I felt were somewhat obscure. These might be obscure to the layman, okay?
That's why we the experts.
Yeah, but I picked movies that I felt, one, I saw not only I guess you could say they were fear-based, but that they also were for me at least, interesting to watch, and they're ones that you aren't gonna be able to find, very easily. I mean, you might be able to find these on DVD and Blu-ray, but they're ones that I felt were not like the Freddy Kruegers or the Hellraisers or even, I talked about May in a couple episodes ago. I didn't pick that one, but I picked ones that I felt these were kind of like the best, but they're maybe ones you don't know about.
Great, I went really commercial. That's good.
I mean, that's fine. No, that's fine. You could do commercial, but yeah, I mean, for me, you want to know what's okay? Well, let me ask you this: what do you find scary in a horror movie?
Well, interestingly enough,
what scares you? What gets under your? What makes your blood run cold?
There's only one film that I've honestly ever been scared by, and I don't know if that's because I'm borderline sociopathic if I take the test. But it was. Oh, well, the missus looked concerned there. It was a joke. It's okay.
So glad I married you.
So, just kidding, folks, sort of. But it was the first time, I think, from a mainstream film, because I saw it when I was like 9 or 10, that was 16 millimeter, and that was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, that's good for 9-year-olds.
I got you beat. I was 2 years old when I saw the second Freddy Krueger movie.
And you turned out straight, so that's good.
Yeah, that was a terrible. That was a terrible one. But but aside from the plot, because when you're 2, you really don't understand things like plot and character and that sort of shit. You're just looking at, holy crap, that guy's finger knives are coming up through the guy's bed sheets.
Yeah,
and he's ripping apart through his body. So, sorry, Mom, you had HBO on when it was 11 o'clock at night, and I was watching it.
You know what? The parents wanted HBO, and they wanted TVs in our rooms to shut us up.
Yeah. But I guess for me, the only movie that's ever been able to give me the creeps, it's not the whole movie, okay? And a lot of people I think I've told you guys about this. Mm-hmm. There's a scene, actually there's a shot in Edward Scissorhands.
Really?
That honestly, if for the longest time, like from the time that I saw it when it was in the early 90s to current, that one shot terrifies the fuck out of me. And it's actually one I used in grad school. Remember the Nightmare movie I made?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about Grant. I mean, Grant's in it. But there was a shot in there that I pulled directly from that movie. And it's the first time that you see Edward come out of the shadows. And the only thing you see are first these black, eyes. And then you see the face start to slowly appear. And then you've got the hands. And it's just like, I'm not yet finished. And it's just, for me, that creeps the fuck out of me. The only other one that comes close to that is the scene with him and Vincent Price. And he does that really creepy, like, offsetting smile that's fake. And because he's a robot. I mean, he doesn't know how to fucking smile.
It's okay. You can laugh.
Yeah,
it's funny.
That smile okay. that he does, that Johnny Depp does,
funny.
is scary as all fuck.
Yeah. Because
it just like still to this day that creeps me out.
That entrance was not as good in Edward Penis Hands, the porno version, which is a real film.
I did not watch it. I know it's a real film. I haven't seen that one.
You know what I was? Quick side note here, just diverging a little.
I think
what
actually
always bothered me about
a
Edward
couple friends
Scissorhands.
of mine are reviewing Edward Penis Hands.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Hey, there we go.
But what always bothered me about Edward Scissorhands is there's a scene where the woman has Edward in her salon and she like straddling him and she feels something and it gets her excited.
That's his penis.
Yeah. And here's my question. What kind of scientist builds a dick for his robot before hands?
The jock cup was invented before the fucking helmet. You wanna chew on that for a minute?
The what?
Here you go, Edward.
Like when you have to wear a jock, like you wear like a cup, like in sports.
Yeah.
Edward.
That device was invented before anybody implemented the use of helmets in sports.
Protecting the,
That's more important.
That's more important.
Okay.
You gotta protect your little head before you protect your big head.
Yeah, it's smaller. Unless you're Shaq.
That made me so happy. Everything that's happening is making me so happy.
Honestly, that's time like this that I wish that we were doing this with video, because Elaine, your reaction was like, I can't believe you just said that.
I'm like super excited. Usually John's the appalling
No.
one.
Edward.
All right, so we're
built
obviously
your
off topic,
penis.
so let's wrangle it back in.
Yeah.
Who wants-
backup one just in case.
I'm just leaving. You can just have fun with the microphone. No, guys, favorite movies go. Come on. Let's get
All right,
started.
who's
Dig
starting?
in. You
Who's
are.
starting?
You
All
are.
right.
You start. This
Okay.
bullshit.
All right. But yeah, so yeah, the only film that truly terrified me was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I think I would still get the creeps if I watched it.
Elaine, what movie terrified you?
Well, they're on my list.
Every
I can't
one of
say
them.
it.
Every one of them. All right, fair enough,
every
fair
movie
enough.
terrifies
They
Elaine.
bother me. Like,
Not to call you out.
They bother me more than I would like to admit. You know, and the imagery really fucks with me. Like, I really did not enjoy the Ring. Like, seeing like who's that? Is
Samara.
that Amber Tamblyn when she's the babysitter or whatever, and they find her in like the closet and shit.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
that really fucked
yeah.
me up, and like just like the creepy like crawling out of the TV and
Yeah.
like that like weird like like skittering.
Part of me thinks that movie
Film
was a
feed.
conspiracy to get people to switch to DVD.
Nah.
I would totally buy that for $1.
Did you see they're making a new one?
I know.
And it's like a viral movie now?
Yeah.
But like, what if you don't have
Fucking
a fucking
YouTube.
landline? Like, go fuck yourself, sequel.
Yeah, they all have landline phones. Like, get fuck yourself. All right.
Yeah, seriously.
But all right, so
Your
honorable
movies.
So, yeah,
mentions.
so I'm afraid of everything, so I'm not the person to ask about that stuff.
All right, so honorable mentions, because I just have to mention them because it was so difficult to put them on the list. Halloween.
Yeah.
Wow, okay, it's an honorable mention.
I absolutely loved the film. It kind of killed the sexual revolution in the 1970s. It was kind of a turning point for that type of movie in the true slasher film. I mean,
Well, it was the first.
yeah.
It was for all intents and purposes.
And for all of
the
you
first.
actuallys in the comment section, we know it's not exactly the first, but
You also can
They'll
suck it.
be like, oh, but Psycho was really the first.
yeah. And honorable mention to The Shining.
Oh, yeah.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
Which, if I wasn't just so convinced that the only reason that the whole movie is so vague and confusing was because Stanley Kubrick decided that I'm just so much smarter than my audience, it might have gotten higher on my list.
Wow.
Hey,
Is he wrong, though? Is he wrong?
Stanley Kubrick is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, but my God, he was a
love The
little
Shining,
up his
though.
own ass.
Well, yeah. I mean, okay, think about it this way, okay? He's battling with Stephen King because Stephen King's like, I want you to make the movie my way.
He was so coked out at the time, yeah. Not making my movie like my book.
Yeah, so, he's dealing with that. And then at the same time, yes, Stanley Kubrick, I have more of an issue with the fact that he was a fucking piece of shit to Shelley Duvall and literally caused her...
hair was falling out.
No, but he caused her to pretty much quit acting. Like, name a movie after Shining that she was in.
He was awful to her.
He
Like,
was
he terrorized
horrible.
her.
Yeah, it's harassment. Like, he claimed he did it.
He did it to get her in the mood.
Yeah, for the
Fuck
character. Yeah.
Well, he even said, he's like, I don't want her. I think it was Jack Nicholson who went ahead and said, yeah, you're going to need to have her,
Yeah. We need to keep her in the movie. You got to make her happy. But
That's too good of a Nicholson. I mean, seriously.
We should exploit this more. We should just make you say things in
Stanley,
actors' voices.
you're going to want her.
Either that or just like do fake Jack Nicholson comes in and stops by the show and you go ahead and do a whole bit
Yeah,
with
do
Jack.
it.
You're going to need her
Monkey.
on those stairs. You're going to want her on those stairs. But anyways.
See? We just need to exploit you.
Yeah. Okay, so
Okay,
Shining.
What's on your list? What's on your actual list?
Coming in at number 3, drum roll, please. No, I'm just kidding. Don't drum roll. Is Night of the Living Dead.
The original?
The original, yes, not the 1990 Tom Savini movie.
Okay.
Which I do not hate, but I
don't
mean,
hate it either. But
I'm talking about the real, authentic 1964 George Romero, who is my hero.
68.
Excuse me. Yeah, I brain farted there for a second.
That's okay.
George Romero, who is, he's my hero. One of the greatest filmmakers of all time.
I think
Pittsburgh boy.
I think he's everyone's, hero if you're an indie filmmaker in the zombie capital of the world. He invented the genre, for God's sake.
But, as much as I adore that movie and I praise that movie, I will admit, it has its problems. there are some things that are a little corny in it. Some of the acting's not great. But, I mean, the film gave us the modern interpretation of the zombie genre. It's a movie that bravely talked about so many subjects. In fact,
without being preachy.
Yeah.
Like, that's the key there, too, is, I mean, this reminds me of when we had Russ Streiner and John Russo in grad school. And
for all of you that don't know, Russ Streiner was the producer, and he also played Johnny in the film, and John Russo co-wrote Night of the Living Dead with George Romero.
But I love the fact that, when people asked them, were you trying to go ahead and talk about racism? Were you trying to go ahead and talk about the Cold War? And their response is, we just wanted to make the best monster movie we could for the money we had. They weren't. He's like anyone else who goes ahead and throws those things, those ideas on top of it. It's open to interpretation. But that's what I love about it. It isn't like we're setting out to go ahead and talk about racism. We're going to talk about this, that, and
racism, different, different generations, class warfare. And the thing is, you can put your own spin on it. Because I remember I was reading this book, and I can't remember who the filmmaker was now, but it wasn't John Waters, but it was a gay filmmaker who had mentioned that he thought the film had tons of gay rights in it, but the idea that some of the characters wanted to stay in the basement, i.e. stay in the closet.
Yeah.
They didn't want to come out and face things head on. And he thought the film was very much about gay rights. Was that their intention? I mean, maybe subconsciously, but I mean, that's what, when a film's that good, you can kind of start to put your own spin on it.
That's what's great about art. It's open to interpretation, and you can, you can derive meaning from it that maybe only matters in a certain way to you,
Because maybe it's part of a bigger issue of us versus them, new versus old, progressive versus regressive. So maybe, and then you can kind of put what your version of that is on that type of.
I always felt that the movie ended up being what it is because the filmmakers, Romero, Russo, Streiner, all of them, they were living in the time that the issues were happening. 1968 was a horrible time for America, So that movie kind of came about as a reflection of that time. Whether it was conscious, I don't believe it was conscious. I think it was subconscious, that these things just kind of came into place. Because, every day they listen on the news, they look at this. I mean, and that's what the world they were, ingesting. And it's going to come out in the writing.
And the film had the balls to end so tragically. You didn't get that from a lot of movies then.
It really was it hits you in the gut. The first time you watch it, you're just like, what the fuck?
You look at a movie, I think it came out.
Dwayne Jones dies in it?
I think it came out the same year, was In the Heat of the Night. And that movie, while very good, had a very cornball ending that almost looked like a Mentos ad. Where he gives the thumbs up and it's any pointy, he gets a thumbs up and it's like Mentos, the fresh maker. It's like, wow, they really just didn't have the balls on that one. And then there's Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which really was just,
oh God.
While it was important that they made the film, it was, in hindsight, it just does not hold up. It did not do anything for progression. But this film really hits you over the head and says, we're not pulling any punches, which is something horror movies can really do. So, fantastic. I will say I struggled between this and Dawn of the Dead. And while I say Dawn of the Dead might have been a better movie, at least on a technical level, this was a more important movie.
I think Night of the Living Dead is more raw.
Yes.
It's hasn't been distilled enough as I see Dawn of the Dead as more of a distilled film where you're taking the zombie idea and you're now distilling it down into something more refined. Whereas Night of the Living Dead is honestly raw and it's balls to the wall and it's just, as you said, it hits you over the head. Day of the Dead, I like that one too because I think, and that's the thing.
It's the Jedi.
Yeah, it's the Jedi. Personally, I prefer Dawn over Night. That's just me, though.
We could almost have a whole episode on that. That one does hit you over the head on the social commentary.
But that was completely conscious. They knew that what they were doing.
And the thing is, the 60s were so bleak and so awful, so the movie was, very gritty. It was black and white. It was very serious. Yeah. And then by the 70s, the thing they were
that was
mocking...
a money issue, though. They didn't have the money.
Yes,
They didn't have the money to shoot in
absolutely.
black
Right, but you would
and
never
color.
know. It
No.
all seems very purposeful,
Yeah.
very stylistic, you know.
But then by the 70s, I mean, everything, it seemed society had become so cartoonish that Dawn of the Dead is almost more like a cartoon. You know, the blood is so over the top
Yeah,
red.
true.
You know, everything is, you know, it seems like, okay, if the world's a cartoon, so is our, you know, interpretation of it,
Yeah.
you know, through what we have here. Number 2, and Brian, I know you're going to probably roll your eyes on me on this one, but The Exorcist. The Granddaddy.
Hey,
Bullshit.
that's a good pick. That's a real good pick.
Bullshit.
Well, why is it great, John?
Well, I mean, once again, for its time when it came out, you know, people fainting in the aisles, you know, women like having miscarriages, you know, nuns like dying of heart attacks, like just you know,
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
mass hysteria.
Yeah.
But you know, something like this hadn't really been seen once again in a mainstream film. I think it's a brilliantly paced film. I think there are scenes of truly terrifying imagery. I think, you know, the characters are compelling. The cinematography is great. Is it the greatest film ever made? No, but I think it was better than The Sting, which beat it for Best Picture of the Year that year.
That is a shame.
yeah.
I will give it that. I will give it that.
But you know, just an utterly terrifying movie, and this coming from somebody that grew up with zero religion. So, I mean, I imagine if you had grown up with like the fear and brimstone of Catholicism or any level of Christianity being drilled in your head, this movie is probably twice as terrifying. But you know, I don't believe in exorcism. I don't believe in possession. I don't believe in demons or hell or any of that stuff. So, I mean, the film's completely fantasy to me. But if you believe in the idea that there actually is exorcisms that happen out there, film's got to be probably twice as terrifying to you. But yeah, I thought, you know, the film had some balls to really go, you know, sorry to use the word again, balls to the wall with it. And I was just, you know, I thought, what a well-paced movie, terrifying movie, and just, you know, brilliantly executed. Well, talk to me here. Talk to me. This is a discussion.
All right. I am not a fan of The Exorcist. I mean, I will correct that. I appreciate what it is. I appreciate what it did. But I'm just not that much of a fan of it because it just doesn't do anything for me. It's always been that way with that movie. I guess the other thing, too, is I hate the fact that this movie kind of gets put on the pedestal of as most people's number one horror movie of all time. Most people would say that. They would say, oh, this is the number one horror movie of all time. I don't like that because I think it overshadows a lot of other movies that maybe, you know, deal with this subject matter in a more relevant time period, and maybe deal with other more creative things. Now, I get why people find it terrifying because it was one of the first movies, in my opinion, to take something that we would consider pure and that we would consider untouchable, a child, and throw it in the most horrific situation. And I would say that is brilliant. It is. I'll give credit to, what was it, William Blatty, who wrote the book. Mm-hmm. So I'll give. I think I'm right on that one. I think William Blatty.
I'm just double checking. Yeah, I think you are too, but I'm just checking.
But I'll give credit to that you are taking that. Now, it is based on a real account of exorcism that happened, I believe, in the 50s.
Peter Blatty.
William Peter Blatty. Okay, I'm partially right. So I believe it happened in the 50s. 40s or 50s, that was a real account of exorcism. Personally, I do believe in paranormal. I do believe in demons and that sort of things, just because it's unknown. And, you know, there have been accounts of it. But for me, I felt that it overshadows a lot of other movies. I also don't like the fact that Linda Blair is partially crippled because of William Friedkin.
And the whole bed scene.
The whole bed scene. Stop! Yeah, okay. I have an issue with the fact that a film director would put his actors in that much danger.
He Kubricked it.
Yeah, he did. He really did. He also, he put his actors in a refrigerated studio that got them, you know, like hypothermia. I mean, I have a problem with that sort of thing. But I'll give it credit. It is a terrifying film on its own merit. And I've always said that one of my goals is to make a movie that has that type of effect where I do have people who are like so terrified to watch it. It's almost like that episode of Masters of Horror called Cigarette Burns. I don't know if you guys ever watched that.
Ooh, no.
Oh, that's a good one. It was directed by John Carpenter.
I do love me some John Carpenter.
It's about a film that basically causes people to commit horrific acts, and it slowly eats away at you. It's a good movie to watch. If you're a film buff, check out the whole series of Masters of Horror. But at the same time, check out Cigarette Burns because it's one of my favorites. But
side note, They Live, is that a horror movie?
I don't know.
I'd say that's a horror comedy.
I came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum. All right. Anyways. And number one, without a doubt, I didn't have to think very hard about this, Psycho.
Okay, yeah.
The granddaddy. This film is flawless, top to bottom.
It is flawless.
Perfectly executed, perfect tone, perfect acting, perfect story, perfect twist, perfect resolution. The only thing that I have a problem with the film, and I have to understand that it was in the era in which it was made. A lot of the audience might have been confused. The ending exposition, 5-minute exposition of explaining why he was in his mom's clothes and how like we could have heard his mom's voice because the audience in the 1960s wouldn't understand that people could cross dress or they could be schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And now that's because the era the movie was made in, and it doesn't hold up. But that's the only thing that doesn't hold up. And I mean, just Hitchcock's just brilliant.
That's
brilliant
one of the
director.
rare movies that, even though it was made in the 60s, it still holds up.
Well, too, I mean, it wasn't made for that much money.
No, it was independent.
Yeah, it was made for less than $1 million, and it's so funny because Hitchcock, he forewent his usual $250,000 salary for a back end of the profits. He was given 60%. This was his last picture for Paramount, and Paramount was sure it would fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made $15 million on this picture in
Wow.
the back end, and it would be like something like 250 some million now.
That's a Jack Nicholson deal right there.
Right, a Jack Nicholson Batman being the Joker deal. Like,
Give me
seriously.
that back end deal, baby.
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, but
Wow.
that's interesting that you chose that for yours.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those films that, say, oh, well, that doesn't hold up, like Videodrome or a lot of Cronenberg movies in
Videodrome
general.
holds up.
It's just a shame, I think, like being our age, because we did come to the film.
Long live the new flesh.
What is a VHS tape? No, but where some horror films or just films in general don't hold up. Like I could show, I think, a younger millennial Psycho right now, and I think they'd be entertained and they would sit through the whole thing. It's
Unless they say, why is it in black and white?
yeah. Well, yeah, unless they're a real turd sandwich.
Don't start with that millennial crap, you guys. Like, I mean, just because someone's
we
younger
are
doesn't mean they
millennials.
can't
That's
sit.
what we
We're
fall in
aging
that.
millennials. How dare you? But what I think is a shame, though, is that it is such a cultural icon.
Yeah.
That, even for us, like, it's a shame that it was spoiled for us just by virtue of us living in the world. Probably before we got the chance to see it, because I mean, Hitchcock, he shrouded the film in so much secrecy. Like,
Yeah.
he wouldn't let people in late. Like, there were signs
Wow.
everywhere that said, like, you cannot come into this picture late, and like, the staff
Because
of
it
this
would be-
theater will remove you with force.
Well, A, would give away the twist, but B, also they probably figured people would want the refunds because Janet Leigh dies so early in the movie. You came in late and she's already dead. Like, I want my money back. I came to see Janet.
Right,
And
right.
for the film to have the balls to kill off its main character,
That was unheard of. At
That
the
was
time.
unheard of.
Yeah,
of.
Completely unheard of.
not even halfway. Like probably about 40% through the movie.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
You watch and you're just like, wait a minute, this is the main character, and she's fucking dead?
Yeah. Well, too. I mean, he played a very special record, like at the beginning of the film as well. That would it would play music, but then it would say 10 minutes to psycho time, 5 minutes to psycho time, just to make sure people weren't fucking late. Like get your popcorn and sit.
Well,
your ass
that
down.
was a tactic back then. It wasn't just
That
Hitchcock.
William Castle.
William
of stuff.
Castle kind of
gotcha,
started that with the
gotcha.
Tingler, where he would electrify the seats, so you'd actually get a shock every single time the Tingler showed up on screen.
I own the Tingler.
I mean,
Helps me.
that's a tactic that a lot of. I mean, they were competing with television. That was
Oh,
the deal.
gotcha.
They had to find ways to get people in the theaters.
Yeah.
So, wow, good list.
Yeah, that's your list. Nice.
Good
Very
list.
Nice.
Where are we going? Are we going clockwise or counterclockwise?
Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
I'll go last.
So, my criteria, as I said, was that these are somewhat obscure. Okay.
Say now, keep in mind, audience, Brian is the bona fide terror guy. So his list is going to probably
He's an
be
expert.
Yeah, it's going to probably be pretty intense here.
You guys probably will know some of these. So at number 3, and this is a good Halloween classic. I watch this one every year. Is 1988's Night of the Demons.
Oh, yes.
Okay, Night of the Demons. If you're not familiar, it's your quintessential 80s. What would I say? Survival horror inside of a abandoned funeral parlor, and basically you've got the Super Friends or the Captain Planet and Planeteers of survivors in this movie, because pretty much every stereotype in this film is represented. You've got the fat guy, you've got the black guy, you've got the Italian guy who talks like Rocky Balboa, because apparently that's what every Italian person in this film talks like. It's really the most bizarre thing. You've got the Asian girlfriend, you've got the ginger, and you've also got the cool 80s guy who doesn't wear a costume. He dresses like Miami Vice. And you've got the prissy blonde girl, the hoary blonde girl played by the lovely Linnea Quigley, and the goth chick who ends up becoming a demon played by...
so every trope possible is what you're saying.
Amelia Kincaid. Yes, every trope possible, but it's a fantastic, fun movie. And I discovered this movie when I was a kid. My family and I, we would go up to Lake Michigan every year during the summer, and we would always go rent movies at this little like mom and pop VHS store. And
what's a VHS?
I know.
What's a video store?
Back in my day, we had these things called video stores. You had to drive out to them to get movies.
And if your teacher molested you, you didn't tell nobody. That's just part of growing up.
But I found this VHS copy. I'm like, what the fuck? And like, this is back in the day when the cover art of the movie would be like, that would be the judging thing there, okay? It wouldn't be anything else. You didn't have the access to the trailer. You didn't have the access to anything else. You saw the cover and you're like, fuck, man. That's some badass cover art there. I'm going to go get this. And it might be a terrible film when you get home and watch it.
Usually the worse the film, the better the cover art.
It's true.
You know, because they knew they had to like really bring
the
it
Blob
home.
remake from the early 90s. That cover art had a plastic sheen over it that was filled with blob goo that you would squish. Okay? That's how bad that movie was.
Wow.
That they gave you something to play with.
Do you guys remember when VHS tapes were different colors? I think my E.T. on VHS was green.
Orange and green.
The Nickelodeon ones were orange and green, man.
But yeah, so Night of the Demons, great film. They did do a remake to it, which was utter shit. It was utter shit. They had
That's a bummer, man.
They had the demon character played by what's her face? She was naked in the American Pie. See?
Wait, an American Pie?
Yeah.
Yeah. The foreign exchange.
The foreign exchange chick.
Shannon Elizabeth.
She played the demon, the goth chick.
Oh.
Well, they knew she would get her.
Okay.
They knew she'd get naked. So.
Also, really cool because it's got with this movie, it's got Bauhaus, the band from the 80s.
If it was a horror movie, shouldn't they have gotten Tara Reid and her scarred up titties? Like, that would be scary, wouldn't it? Because her botched boob job.
She didn't have any of her plastic surgery yet.
Like Quato from Total Recall.
And don't be a dick. She's not a good actress, but that poor thing has some serious body dysmorphia.
She's got some issues there. So yeah, the
acting dysmorphia.
Night of the Demons. Check it out. 1988. You won't be disappointed.
Very cool.
It's a bad movie, but it's a fun movie. Okay. The next one on my list is From Beyond.
Ooh.
You ever heard of From Beyond?
I haven't.
I've vaguely heard of that title, but I'll be damn honest with you. I don't know anything about it.
From Beyond, 1986. It is a Stuart Gordon film, and it's based on a H.P. Lovecraft short film. It's also...
sounding good.
Yeah, it's also Brian Yuzna, so the guy who did the movie Society. You ever check that film out?
No.
Oh, my God. Society is a fucked up film. It's not on my list, but it's a great film. It stars Jeffrey Combs... Barbara Crampton, Ted Sorrell, and Ken Foree.
Oh, from the creators of Reanimator.
Yes, it's one of those H.P. Lovecraft Reanimator type movies. But it's a great film because it's one of these movies that kind of deals with like what happens when science goes too far. Like again, similar to Reanimator.
Right.
And the plot of it is basically that Jeffrey Combs' character, Crawford Tillinghast, is a lab assistant for this crazy sex-obsessed doctor called Edward Pretorius. Dr. Edward Pretorius. He has this machine in his attic in this house that they're working in which they're trying to stimulate the pineal gland in the center of the forehead, which I guess allows you to see the fourth dimension. So you can see like all these creatures that are apparently around us, but we can't see because we don't have the ability. And what ends up, that's the from beyond part. And what ends up happening is the machine causes one of these creatures to basically eat the head of Dr. Pretorius, and that's kind of the start of the film. Okay, it's this whole crime scene of, this doctor was killed, and they think that Crawford Tillinghast did it. Okay, so this psychiatrist named Dr. Catherine McMichaels, great films there, played by Barbara Crampton, who was one of the scream queens back in the 80s. Okay, and Ken Foree, whose name is Bubba. His name is Bubba. They go ahead and they decide they're going to let Crawford try to stay in the house and kind of reenact the whole experiment thing to kind of prove to him that he's crazy and that he actually did it. Well, it turns out shit starts happening. Okay, so Barbara Crampton starts to become sex obsessed, and I'm
As
serious.
you do.
Oh, there's a scene where she quite literally is trying to rape Jeffrey Combs in lingerie.
Ooh.
Okay. And then you see that Edward Pretorius, the doctor who got his head ripped off.
Why is Jeffrey Combs in lingerie?
Huh?
Sorry, I'm just making fun of the way you phrase that.
Oh.
She's trying to rape Jeffrey Combs in lingerie.
Yeah.
Why is he wearing it?
I don't know. He's Jeffrey
looks
Combs.
good,
He's
though.
kind of weird. But it's a gory fucking film. And it's really good. I think it's a fantastic film, but it's one of these obscure ones that is just goofy and out there, and
This is what people want to know.
it's a Stuart Gordon film. So if you're familiar with his work, Reanimator, that sort of thing, it's definitely up your alley there.
Barbara Crampton was in one of my favorite movies, Chopping Mall.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you fucker! You made me watch that entire thing.
Oh,
you
Chopping Mall's
asshole.
great.
Oh my god, it's the worst fucking movie I've ever seen. Jesus.
Yeah.
That's
So
really bad.
so that's my number 2, and number 1. All right, there's some story behind this one. All right. Is the movie Brain Damage. No, see, I picked some good ones. I picked some good ones. Brain Damage is a Frank Henlotter film. So Frank Henlotter, if you're familiar with him, he directed Basket Case and Frankenhooker.
Frankenhooker.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So it's up that alley. And the reason why I'm surprised you
Right,
guys
all of
didn't
your
get
cover
this.
arts of these films all look very similar.
They are
Somebody's
awesome,
face
aren't
being
they?
ripped off, and
Okay, so this is why this movie is hilarious. Okay, one, the main character's name is Brian, so I can
already
kind of-
bonus points.
yeah. But the movie basically is about this character Brian who ends up encountering a very phallic-shaped creature called the Aylmer.
The Aylmer.
Okay, no joke. And the Aylmer has the same voice as that singing frog from Looney Tunes.
Hello, my man.
No, I'm dead serious. That is the voice. I think it's actually the same person. But yeah, the whole deal is that this creature, the Aylmer, basically injects blue goo into your brain. Like it latches onto your brainstem and basically shoots this blue goo into your brain, which gives you euphoria and allows you to see colors and shit, but it makes you addicted to it. And in exchange, all the Aylmer wants is to eat people's brains. So this Aylmer's been around for like generations, and the character Brian encounters this by his neighbors, who are these old couple that are slowly they're like junkies for the Aylmer, and they lose the Aylmer and they kind of lose their shit and start dying. This movie is hilarious, and at the same time, you've got bizarre shit because it's a Frank Henlotter film. Like, there's a weird fucking scene where Brian's girlfriend it's a dream sequence, and she's having sex with not only Brian but Brian's brother Mike. It's weird because they're kind of hinting at this sort of like weird, sexual
Twincest?
triangle. Yes, yeah. And it also kind of
Keeping it in
plays
the
that Brian's girlfriend eventually kind of, has an affair with the brother. Okay, as that happens. The reason why I love this movie is because, one, it is really dealing with drug addiction. All right, this movie came out in 1988, when crack cocaine was really hitting.
Pee Wee Herman was warning us about crack cocaine.
Yes. So it is dealing heavily with, those types of themes. And on top of that, it also deals with things like homosexuality, which really weren't talked about in movies back then. So it's really a great film. It's gory as all hell. Like, there's a scene where the Aylmer, because he was pissed off at Brian for saying, I'm not going to give you any more people's brains, okay, decides that he's going to toy with him by not giving his blue goo, okay? No, I'm serious about this. And the Aylmer's dancing in a sink with this Aylmer song. And Brian's sitting there. He's got, like, his eyes have been sunken in. He's going through withdrawals. And he's having these weird hallucinations where he's pulling his ear out, and there's just a torrent of blood that comes out of his ear. It looks fake as shit, but it's hilarious. It's a great fucking movie. One of my favorite horror movies. And the way I discovered this movie was I went to Cinema Wasteland.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Cinema Wasteland? Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
Please inform our audience.
Cinema Wasteland is this horror film mecca, in my opinion. For the East Coast. It's in Strongsville, Ohio. And I went there with a group of friends a couple of years ago, and they were playing Brain Damage because Frank Henlotter was there. He was signing autographs and things like that. And they were playing it, and if you go to Cinema Wasteland, pretty much if you're watching movies, you're not actually just sitting down there and watching the movies. You're sitting down there and doing like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing to the movies. So people will shout out, oh yeah, here goes Brian. Like there'll be a whole bunch of comments. And I watched this movie, and I was just like, this is fucking crazy. And I bought it the next day. It was one of those films. And I honestly, I rarely buy DVDs. It has to, like, really get into my,
Same.
Top tier for me to spend money on a DVD and add to my collection. Very particular about that. But this one, the next day, bought it. So, yeah, it's a great film.
Cool. Wow.
Gotta check those
I think
out.
it's interesting that all of your films have comedy elements to them.
Yeah.
I mean, black comedy.
Yeah, they're dark comedy. I mean, From Beyond is that's more of a horror one, in my opinion. Night of the Demons definitely has comedy elements to it. Brain Damage, I just find funny. I mean, seriously, there's a scene where Brian is getting a blowjob from I think some girl he meets in a club, and the Aylmer shoots out from his pants. And the girl is like choking on the Aylmer.
Oh my god!
Which, if you guys found a picture of what the Aylmer looks like yet?
No.
Okay, so
I'm letting you.
I'm gonna
search now. Yeah, let's all.
Okay, so I'm gonna. Here's what the Aylmer looks like, and you'll crack up.
So it's an Aylmer brand.
This is it, right here.
Okay, so we're gonna.
Oh, that's the thing you posted.
Yeah, that's the thing I posted.
It's why does it have a face?
It looks like Ivan Ooze's dick.
It's a phallic symbol. It literally is a dick.
Considering that we are looking at something visual on a podcast, you're welcome, listening audience.
Well, you have to go ahead and fucking watch Brain Damage so you know what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, see the scene? It literally is a dick.
So it is. Oh, well. Good Lord, if that's your dick, then you should go to a doctor immediately.
Some runners up to this. There was one film that, I mean, obviously besides the Hellraiser and May and that sort of those movies I've already talked about. But there's another really good one that is another Frank Henlotter film called Bad Biology, which is another horror comedy type movie. Which if you look up that one, that's more of a modern film in which you've got issues of some of the horrors that you deal with in society regarding sexuality. Like there's basically two characters, a male who's got a problem where his dick is sentient and it's huge.
That is a problem, isn't it?
And it's huge and it like wiggles, like does this whole thing because he injected steroids into it. And then there's an issue. The other one is a girl who has a hyperactive menstruation cycle, so she quite literally she's like a super nympho, so to speak. She basically has sex within 5 minutes, has birthed something. It's
Oh,
crazy.
so she's Irish.
It's crazy. Oh, Jesus Christ, man.
The worst.
Hey,
Crazy film.
You dirty, drunken. Why don't you go get some jobs? You filthy leprechauns.
Oh my good God!
What
will
the
you settle
fuck,
down?
man?
That's okay. That's the Irish.
What the
Start a
fuck?
fight with somebody every episode.
Well, we all know they like to fight.
You're kind of an asshole.
But I'm surprised you didn't pick anything from Clive Barker. Isn't he your favorite filmmaker?
He is, and that's why I didn't. But I didn't want to pick ones that I've already gone over. So, like, I easily could pick, Hellraiser. I could pick Lord of Illusions, Candyman. But those are all movies that I think a lot of people have seen already, and those are kind of. I wanted to pick obscure ones. So these are kind of from my obscure section.
Gotcha. All right, well, moving this along, Miss Elaine.
Sweet. All right, my turn. Cool. So I was like you. I had a couple of honorable mentions just because I found the idea of like choosing just 3 overwhelming. So for my honorable mentions, my first honorable mention is Carrie.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I like that you both like made the guttural like yes.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah, I think
Although that's 90% not a horror movie, and then 10% extreme horror movie.
Well, for me,
it's all building up to that climax.
For me, I needed something. I wanted films that either had a greater point, meant something incredibly important in their time, or personally scared me.
Yeah.
So that was my criteria. The reason why I eliminated Carrie, like you guys said, is that it isn't a horror movie quite the whole way through, and then it's like a mega horror movie, in other aspects.
Yeah.
So it didn't quite make my cut, but it was
John
really
Travolta's
close.
acting's terrifying.
It's true. I think that it's just something anybody can relate to, the isolation that you do feel like when you're in overwhelming social situations.
Yep.
I think, the idea of, being bullied and everything is something that would resonate with pretty much anyone. To that point, my other honorable mention was 2008's Let the Right One In, the Swedish film.
Yeah, that's a good vampire film.
Yeah, and again, I eliminated it because I didn't find it to necessarily be a horror movie so much as just like a very dark thriller and a dark look at, again, bullying, relationships, like that sort of thing. Because it's fucking dark.
It really is.
But again, like one thing that really always attracts me to a movie, regardless of the genre, is the performances, and the performances in that film are top notch.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one of the few films on Rotten Tomatoes it's like over 95%. Now, you can take that with a grain of salt, as Brian frequently does. But I mean, for it to be so universally lauded like that, I mean, that's not without significance to me, So
Right.
So that was my other, and I guess we should talk about it next week on our vampire episode. But but that was my second honorable mention. My number 3 is Halloween. It's a classic for a reason.
Yeah.
And for me, I just remember seeing it for the first time. I remember like being like deliciously scared, like not really like my sense of safety has been shattered, kind of scared, but just like all in good fun. Like, someone has presented this very entertaining story to me, kind of scared,
Who is the boogeyman?
I also really responded to the soundtrack. I think that the soundtrack is definitely what makes the film what it is. So that's like a huge element for me as well, because it created the mood so much, as much as, the cinematography, they really work hand in hand, I think, to give you the overall effect. To that point as well, Psycho makes my list too. Isn't that gross? So we picked the same movie and we're married.
Well, you guys are married, so
gross.
I guess that makes sense.
But again, I had read somewhere that, Hitchcock said that the Psycho is like 33% soundtrack. And I don't know if this is true or not, but legend has it that he went back and he gave the composer more money, like double his salary, because he was so happy with the score. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean,
they made $15 million off the movie. So
you can only trust, the trivia section of IMDb so far. But that's what they, that's what they have.
Well, they use the violins when she's being stabbed in the shower, and it hits the note each time, so you can almost feel, that she's being stabbed by the music.
Yet they never show.
The entire.
They never show it though.
Yeah, and the entire.
And she had some great ass titties. That's a real thing.
Can I talk? Do you have to interrupt me to talk about titties?
I had to mansplain titties to you.
Are you done?
Not exactly, but I'll be
Can
quiet.
you be done?
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole score is strings. just want to punch you in the throat sometimes.
I know.
That's marriage. But no, the whole score is strings too, which I think is significant. I think that's also very interesting.
Yeah.
So that's my number 2. I mean, you covered a lot of it. You know, like I said, it's an indie film. You know, ish. It was, you know, made for around, I think, 800,000. I think, and it's one of the most, you know, universally classic films of all time. And then my number 1, and I'm surprised this didn't make your list at all. But my number 1 is Silence of the Lambs.
Good pick.
That's a good pick.
And that one got my number 1 because
really
it did scare me. And like I said, the sliding scale of terror for me is not a difficult one to master. Like, I'm usually watching the shittiest horror movie and I'm like, you know, though I did really good at Blair Witch. When we saw Blair Witch in the theater, I thought my life was going to be ruined because I just, when I see disturbing imagery, I can't shut it off. Like, I can't, forget it. So, like, I'll be alone, you know, in the apartment and John's not home and everything's creaking and all I can see is, you know, like, poor Talia crumpled in half, like, because they broke the witch doll or whatever, and I just see it like on my kitchen floor and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. Like, that's why horror movies bother me so much. I can't let go of the imagery ever. But you know, I thought Buffalo Bill was just so frightening, and I thought that the final.
Who's more terrifying, Lecter or Bill?
For me, Bill.
I found Bill more terrifying.
For me, Bill, absolutely.
I always
because it's almost like, you know, I know that Lecter's he's certainly a foil and he's certainly an antagonist, but he feels more like a foil than
I always saw
else
him as foil, but at the same time almost anti-hero like.
Well, because
he always had an anti-hero.
We do depend on him in some regard. I think that's like the difference. But yeah. So sorry. Dang, I was gonna say something else and you derailed my train of thought.
I apologize.
But I did find it scary in the moment. You know, and I found the concept of someone like Buffalo Bill rather terrifying. Yeah. You know, and two, again, absolutely top-notch performances. That's really important to me, too. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Like, the ending scenes where she's in the house, I mean, that's fucking horrifying. Like, the tension is so palpable.
Where he's got, like, the night vision goggles on and he's watching her.
You're ready to fucking pop out of your skin. Like, you're like, what the fuck is going to happen? Like, that's great filmmaking there if it can make you feel like that, you know?
Jonathan Demme had his moments. He really had his moments, and that was him at his top form. Interestingly enough, we mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Psycho, and Silence of the Lambs, all movies based off of Ed Gein, real-life serial killer. If you have a moment, I would suggest maybe not doing it at work, but if you have a moment, Google Ed Gein.
I wouldn't do it in the dark either.
Yeah,
yeah, pretty much his face is the thing of nightmares.
Says the dude who picked a film about a blue dick.
So that's me.
You would know.
A blue dick that shoots blue goo in your brain.
Good picks, guys. I'm glad we didn't talk about it beforehand because I want to be surprised.
I did want to go ahead and just do a shout out here to a couple, because we did post on Twitter, we just post on Facebook.
Yeah.
A couple people who did respond and gave us their favorite picks.
We got the Screaming Skull, right?
Yeah, Patty Amato brought up the Screaming Skull, which I thought was like, wow, that's a blast from the past.
Who is Patty Amato? Is that your mom?
She's a friend of mine.
Okay.
Colleague and friend of mine. I definitely want to check that out. Wait, she has a... Do you know what Elaine's maiden name is?
No.
Okay, I was gonna say
that explains that.
No, I don't.
But no, yeah. But yeah, Screaming Skull. Like, I definitely want to check that out. It looks like one of those fabulous '50s cornball drive-in horror movies. So that'll be interesting. Thank you for that, Patty. Kevin Finch, who's a long-time listener, if you want to say long time. We haven't been on the air that long.
And friend of the show.
Little Monsters, Tales from the Dark Side. And
that's a good one.
Event Horizon, which is
Event Horizon is terrifying.
Another science fiction horror
that
movie.
I would say that is the quintessential Hellraiser in space movie there.
Ooh, Hellraiser in space. I like it.
So definitely good choices there, especially Tales from the Dark Side. I like that.
Yeah. I had Twitter. So these guys have been following us for a while. Their podcast up in, I cannot pronounce where they're from, but it's Ontario. It's
that's all you need.
It's Ontario. They're Canadian.
Good.
Really good guys. They
good looking too.
Yeah, I'm jealous of their beards.
You can listen.
They've got
to them
some pretty
and
intense beards.
Enjoy their sexy voices. Know they're sexy to match.
But their podcast name is Basement Condition, and they're at B Mint Condition on Twitter. And they said that they love the movie Dead Alive, The First Evil Dead, and Attack of the Killer Condom. Which I love that because I have a poster of Killer Condom in my living room.
What?
Yeah, you didn't know that? Oh, come on. You guys have been in my place.
How did you miss that?
How did you miss that? John knew it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, great films. Dead Alive, one of the goriest films you'll ever watch. And then you're going to realize, oh, wow, this guy went ahead and made Lord of the fucking Rings.
That's true. That's very true.
So, I think that's about it.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah.
Talked about some super good movies.
Some super good movies.
Truly spooky movies.
So check out check out our picks. If you guys still have lingering thoughts, or if you think our lists are bullshit, let us know.
Yes, please harass
John
us.
still hasn't gotten Twitter yet because he's too cool for
You
school.
really need to
I'm
get the
building
fucking
up the
Twitter.
tension, guys, to a big explosion. I'm gonna explode all over Twitter. Get it nice and sticky.
Yeah, I'm signing you up tonight, and I get to pick your handle.
Oh, okay. So be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and Google Plus at Psycho Show. If you have a favorite movie you would like for us to review or a question you want to throw to us, you can contact us at our website, cinemapsychoshow.com, and be sure to subscribe and review. Catch our next episode available every Friday. We really need those review guys.
Review.
Really need
review,
reviews.
Please review.
Please
Trick or
review.
treat, smell my feet, give me something good to skeet.